Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to part 3 of this series. And what we've got here is our Atari Jaguar. In part 1, we fixed the cartridge slot on the board. In part 2, we replaced all the capacitors, and we double-checked our board and went through it top to bottom to make sure everything was functional, and we hooked up some temporary wires on it to give us a composite output, so we could check the video and see that everything worked. We also replaced the LED in part 2. So on to part 3, and what we're going to do today is I've already taken this console and I put it in the sink and scrubbed it and cleaned it within an inch of its life. What we're going to be dealing with today, though, is all these scuffs and scratches all over the place. Now, this is not in terrible condition by any stretch of the imagination. It is nothing that anyone would not put in their collection. It is not beat up unjustifiably, but that doesn't mean we can't make it look a little bit better. And how we're going to do that is with this product. Now, I have tried several different plastic polishing products. I have tried Meguiar's Plastic X, and it does not seem to give me the result that I want. This, on the other hand, I found out about through another YouTube channel and gave it a shot and have been absolutely thrilled. Now, here's what I'll say. When you buy this, it comes in a little box, like so, and it's really made for acrylic, but it also comes with a little bitty piece of cottonish paper or cottonish cloth, and it comes with a small piece, if I can fish it out, of 1500 grit sandpaper. And what they tell you, 2 little pieces, and what they tell you is, if you can't get the scratches out, apply the 1500 grit sandpaper, give it a good sand, or a light sand, and then start polishing. And the procedure for polishing with this is apply a little bit and rub on it for, I kid you not, about 3 minutes. That's what the directions say. Polish the scratched areas using heavy pressure for 2 to 3 minutes. For deep scratches, repeat application several times. Very deep should be treated beforehand with special abrasive grit 1500 and a little water. Now, here's the problem. This has a texture on it, molded. If we go sanding this, we will destroy the texture. That is something we cannot do, we will not do, no matter what. So, instead, what we've got are these guys, okay? This is, if you remember me mentioning on another video, is another attachment from a company called Drill Brush. And Drill Brush sells this as a kit. You can buy these. These are mainly used for polishing cars and headlights. And when I say mainly, generally that's what you attach to a rotary polisher that you would use to polish your car's paint. And then you get these different foam blocks, and generally they're a lot bigger, smaller, whatever else. And they're different coarsenesses and abrasion levels on them. This is very stiff. This is kind of a middle ground, and this blue one is the softest. I don't see anything on this that's going to require our orange one, so we're going to set him aside, and we're going to start with our red. And it's simple. It's just Velcro, sticks right on. A little bit of light pressure. Chuck him up in the drill. Now, why would we use a drill for this? Well, because as it turns out, I'm fat and I'm lazy, and I can't be bothered to rub on this for hours to get all of these little scuffs and scratches and everything out. And really, it doesn't really have so much to do with that I'm fat and lazy. It has a lot more to do with that there's a lot of scuffs and scratches, and none of them are major, but the quality that you get with a drill, because you can maintain a constant speed, and you can run an entire area, a large section at a time, tends to be a little bit better. Tends to be just a little bit better, which is the same reason that people use electric polishers on cars, on their paint jobs. Yes, it can be done by hand. However, for speed and the quality of job you get, you really want something automated. So you don't want to go applying a huge amount to the work area. You want to start with a small area, a small dab, a couple of them in some small areas. Okay, we're going to focus our attention right here on this side first and foremost. Now you want to make sure, you really want to make sure that you have really cleaned this and really scrubbed it well before you go polishing on this in any way at all. If you don't, you're just rubbing grit and grime into the finish, which is just plastic, but it will scratch it further. So I'm probably gonna mute this and speed through a big portion of this, and so you guys can kind of see some of the finished results, and I'll stop along the way a couple times and discuss some of this. Okay, so we polished that up quite a bit and really made a big difference in the overall look. Now we did have some pretty heavy gouges. I don't know that you're going to be able to see them on screen. We had some pretty big heavy scratches here and one right here in this Jaguar logo. We took them out for the most part. They're still faintly visible. I won't say they are widely visible, excuse me, but they are faintly visible. You can see the scratch in there, the scuff in there a little bit. There's one up here, but other than that, overall, the quality came out remarkably well. The console looks fantastic, looks way better than it did when I got it. It's nice and clean. And I would be proud, personally, I would be proud to put this on my own shelf. And hopefully one of you guys will be proud to put it on your shelf. Because I don't think I'm going to keep this one. I think once we test it out, I may play with it for a little bit, just to triple check that there are no bugs in it, nothing malfunctioning funny or acting weird. But I think that I think this one should go to one of you guys. I think it deserves a home for on your shelf somewhere. Is what I think. I think that's the best place for it. And to be a little bit honest, my shelves are getting quite loaded down. I posted a video a while ago showing my collection, and at the end of the day, I couldn't show all of it. But I got some of it. I need to post a much better video, maybe one of me talking about some of my consoles and what I've got. But at any rate, I think this would be a a great addition to that. I would certainly be proud to have this on my shelf, and I believe one of you guys will be too. So that top now looks pretty good. You really can't complain with that. What we do have to do though is polish this guy. Now, this is our power on-off button, and he has a little spring. We're going to make sure we put that somewhere safe, and we're going to polish this guy up as well. It's not going to need a whole lot of work, and you want to be careful, extra careful with this, because the plastic is brittle. A lot of these buttons are cast, and it doesn't matter which console. When they're put in the mold and they're cast, they're very soft, they're very thin, and they will break very easily. Okay, we've got him all cleaned off, looking good. We can slide our spring back on, put him back in the board. Now, the only part of the plastics of this board that I did not remove was the clear LED plastic piece right here that goes up. The LED bulb sits inside of it, and I didn't because it was plasti welded on, and I did not want to risk breaking that or damaging it and not being able to get it back on, so I just didn't take him out. A lot of times the plasti welded pieces, they'll go back on just fine. Sometimes though they don't like to, and they won't. And when you run into those situations, what you'll end up doing is snapping those. And it's the same sort of story with these guys, with these push buttons right here. If you'll notice, it's giving me a little bit of a fight getting in, and I am certainly not going to push on it too hard. I've been down that road before, and what you end up with is a broken button that you can't get a hold of. One notorious one that I had was on my personal Famicom, Nintendo Famicom. I ordered it and waited and searched around for just the right one. I say just the right one. I searched around and found one on eBay that I was willing to pay for, and had it shipped over, and I was very excited to get it. And I took it apart, and the very first thing I did was broke the eject button. Very first thing I did, broke the eject button, and I did it because I would guess I was just in a hurry. It wasn't certainly something that I intentionally did. I was just in a hurry, and that is so much better than it was before. Okay, let's give this one final wipe down, and we are going to then attack the bottom piece of plastic. And the bottom piece of plastic has got a couple little interesting things going on. Now, I did some research, and that sticker that was on the bottom, if you guys remember it, was not a factory original sticker. I searched around in every picture of the bottom of every one I found. I could not find that sticker showing on any of them, so I took it off. Now we've got to clean the residue up, and we have to remove this from your video sticker, which is a paper, but it's got a chrome backing on top of it. So that's no problem because he'll peel right on up. We'll put him aside. So we've still got our residue here and here, and I'll show you what I do. Maybe you've seen me do it in some other videos, but I'll show you what I do. I like these little plastic spudgers. I guess that's what they're called. I'm not quite sure what they're called. But these little plastic gizmos right here, I'm a huge fan of using them, and they remove gunk on a board really well, or on a plastics really well, and they're also soft enough they won't scratch it. And that is very important. So what we're going to do is put a little bit of isopropyl down, and we're going to give him just a little scrub with this where our sticker was. We're not trying to rub through the board. We're just giving it a little scrub with this plastic to break up any surface tension on anything. And then we're going to grab our trusty paper towel that you guys always hear me talk about and wipe that area clean. Now, that for the most part, still got a little bit here. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our toothbrush, give him a scrub. Now you'll notice I'm deliberately being careful to keep any sort of isopropyl alcohol out from this sticker. This is a plasticized sticker. In other words, it's got a certain amount of plastic on it, but it is still a paper sticker underneath it, and if too much liquids get in there, it will damage that, and we don't want that to happen. I don't know if you guys have noticed yet, but I did get a nice new mat. I'm very happy with it. It is way, way, way bigger than my other one, which I've had for a number of years, and I've been very happy with it as well. Certainly didn't have any complaints. I just wanted a better, cleaner work area. And these silicone mats are cheap enough. You know, once they've lasted you a couple years and they get stained up enough, it's a good time to go ahead and just replace them. You know, like I said, they're cheap enough. You just buy a whole new one. All right, so that's got that removed. Now, we've got a couple more small problems to deal with on the bottom of this, and some that you guys, most people would probably never notice, but these little rubber feet, okay, these little guys right here, they're just, I don't know if you guys can see me peeling this off of the corner edge of it right here. These molded rubber feet right here, over time, the rubber degrades. It's what all rubber does. It's why your tires, you know, you should rotate your tires or get new tires every so many miles or whatever else, because the rubber slowly breaks down. And when it breaks down, now we've got the console rubbing on whatever wooden surface, and you know, not that it's going to necessarily hurt anything, but if I have something close in size, and I don't know that I do, but I don't know that I don't. Those are definitely not large enough. Those are squares. Those won't work. I think these are going to be... No, I don't have anything large enough. So, here's what we're going to do. We are not going to replace these. We're going to clean up around the edges as best we can with our knife. And clear off as much of the old gunky rubber as possible. And then we are just going to apply some of these new rubber feet over the top of the existing ones. Now, is that perfect? No. In a perfect world, I would have the exact piece that I needed. But again, and I said this early in the series, we're dealing with an Atari Jaguar. They didn't make a whole lot of these, and parts are not easy to come by. They're not easy to find. And so finding the exact size rubber feet, I'm sure I could do it. Give me enough time on Amazon or eBay. I'm sure I could source something pretty close. But I'm never going to get the exact original ever, no matter what I do. That'll just never happen. Now, you guys please don't panic when you see me going after this with my pocket knife. I do keep my pocket knife sharp, but I am being extraordinarily gentle. Again, I don't want to scar the plastic. That is not the goal. The goal is to remove some of the rubber that has fallen over the edge, rolled over the edge on these feet, and is now resting on plastic. Will it hurt the plastic? Not in any way. Will it hurt the feet? No, not really in any way. However, we can make it look a little bit better than it currently does, and not only can we make it look a little bit better, but we can give it a little bit more functionality by putting those little rubber feet on top of these. And what those rubber feet will do over time is, again, they'll keep this from sitting on a hard surface and wearing that original factory rubber out any more than it already is. So, now the last piece to this puzzle, once we get all of this done, I'll tell you what, I've now made a mess on my shiny brand new mat. Not real happy about that. But we'll try to live through it. Now the next big piece to this puzzle are the metals. I'm going to do my best to get these little feet right here in the middle, perfectly just so. I deliberately did not go with a shiny rubber foot on these. I could have, but I didn't. I also deliberately did not polish the bottom of this, andLl tell you why. It's superfluous, number one. In other words, the bottom of the consoles never see any daylight. I mean, you're going to get some scratches. This one's got a good size scratch right here. But they never see that same type of abuse to sunlight, daylight, scuffs and scratches and stuff like that that the tops of the consoles get. And because they never see that, they tend to stay in much better condition overall. Okay. So, I'm pretty happy with this right here. So, the next thing we're going to do is go grab the metals one at a time. The top one ended up being in really good shape. The bottom one had a little bit of rust spots on it. We're going to fix that up real quick, and we're going to reassemble this console. So, let me go grab those metals real quick, and we'll fix the little rust spots on it. We're going to start putting this guy back. So, once you've got your sandpaper rounded up, you want to tear you off a little piece. Remember, we're not going to go nuts on this. This is painted. It's hard to tell in a picture, but this is not bare metal like you get on a Nintendo or a Sega or whatever. And I could go back over and paint this, but I'm going to try not to. I prefer to just remove the rust, if at all possible, without damaging this too much. And push comes to shove, if I have to paint it, I will. if I'm going to try to rub on this for a little bit and see if I can make a dent in it. If I can, great. If I can't, then we will go outside and paint it real quickly before we put it back in. Yeah, so this is gonna need a dash of paint. So what we've got going on here is I've tried to, all of the parts that are rusted on this guy right here, all of those parts are on these raised divots you see. Now, could I leave those in place? Yes. Would it hurt anything? No. But the rust would eventually corrode more and more and more and more and more. Now, I could sand this all the way down. I could hit it with a wire brush. I could go absolutely nuts. Or I could go out here and just spray it down real quick with some Rust-Oleum that will neutralize, which is a good thing about Rust-Oleum, that will neutralize all of this rust and put a nice clean coat on it. So I'm not going to go super crazy. I'm going to knock off the loose rust on the top of it. And that's probably about as far as I'm going to carry this on. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. No need to do a full-blown sanding, polishing job on this guy. Again, it's a painted piece. It's on the very bottom of the board. And while we do care, we obviously care, the result will be identical. Or near as makes no difference, identical. And the important part is it'll neutralize any of the rust that we've missed. I'm just trying to knock off the loose rust. So let me take this outside real quick. We'll shoot this with paint, and I'll be right back with it. Alright guys, so before we go reassembling this, what we're going to do is do a real quick test on this, and just to kind of rehash everything, in part one of the series we replaced our cartridge connector down here and put a brand new cartridge connector in. Let me pull this game out so you guys can see him. So we replaced our cartridge connector with a brand new one. In part two of this series we recapped the whole board, cleaned him up, we replaced the LED light on it to a shiny new red one. Not that it needed one because it was already red. However, we went ahead and replaced him with a new red one, and again, you know, it's just a little bit brighter and shinier than the original. In the meantime, I did purchase a game for this. It's Checker Flag, so we can put that guy in and test. Now, if you guys remember, the test that we did in part two just showed that we have the standard Jaguar red screen of death, the noted red screen of death. So a couple things to remember about the Jaguar is, first and foremost, they will not power on, no matter what you do, unless you have a cartridge connected, unless you're smart like we are and like all of you guys are, and you remember to bridge pins 34B and 35B on the bottom of the board. If you bridge those two, it will believe that a cartridge is connected, and it will allow our console to power on. Now, all you'll get if you don't actually have a cartridge in, all you'll actually get is the red screen of death with a red Jaguar logo. You won't get any sound. You'll get nothing else. That's all you'll get. And that's what we got. Now, again, I had to order a cartridge because I didn't have one, a game for this because I didn't have one, to show you guys that the console was going to be fully functional. But as we're here, I think it's time for us to go in and do one final test before we do the reassembly. So, what we've done here, because I'm going to have to take these wires out. Now, I have ordered the proper audio-video cable for the back of it that gives us composite and S-video out. It has not arrived yet. but we're close enough. If this works, all we got to do is plug it in once it arrives, and we're good to go. So what we did is we soldered on, we took a composite cable, and if you guys remember this from part 2, and we soldered on the composite video to L6, video ground to L16, L15, no, correction, L16, and then we just did mono audio. I wasn't worried about having stereo channel yet. I'll check that, and I say check that. If we've got mono, we've got stereo. I know we're good on that. And so we've got that hooked up and plugged in over there. So we're going to do a real quick, simple test. I'm going to drop our cartridge in. I tell you what, I really do like the way a brand new cartridge connector feels. We'll pan the camera down here and over here to our screen. And let's power it on and see what happens. So guys, there's our logo, and I'm going to go ahead and call this one as repaired can get, and it is ready to rock and roll. So let's pull this guy back up, and bear with me. We will get everything ready. Let's disassemble our wires, and we'll go ahead and reassemble our console real quick. Now that we know that it's working, everything loads. The important thing to remember is when you're testing Jaguar, is do you have proper power? Yes, you do. Or yes, we do in this case. Do you have a game cartridge inserted? Because if you don't, all you'll get is the red screen of death. And have you replaced your capacitors? If you have, you should be good to rock and roll, and there should be no reason it doesn't work. And there you go. It worked flawlessly for us. So we are ready now to move on. Once we get this guy all desoldered. Now, if you guys will remember, we did have to extend our audio ground wire all the way up here to this little test pad beside C24. C24 being the capacitor, the test pad being the audio ground for our test pad. So we've got him all desoldered. We can just simply set that guy out of the way. And let's go ahead and reassemble this guy since we're here. And we'll talk a little bit more about this as we're wrapping things up. The first thing that you have to do with the Jaguar to get him fully reassembled is you have to stick the board into the metal shell on the bottom. So once he's in there, don't forget your little cardboard piece down at the bottom. If you do forget it, your board will short. It will short against ground. Now, I talked about earlier, but I'm going to talk about it again. When this console came to me, if you guys will remember, the only screws that I actually had to take out were from the board side were these two silver screws that were up here. Now, originally, there were two more silver screws that lived on our cartridge connector back here. They were missing from this console. I really would have liked to have had those particular screws, but what I don't have are those particular screws. So we had to dig around in our little jar of screws, and we had to find a single M3 by 10 was the correct size screw that this took. And we're going to be extra careful putting them in just to make sure everything drops right in the way we want it to. And careful threading this in. Guys, do not forget this step. If your console, if you decide to take it apart, if your console didn't come with these, or you took it apart and you lost these, do not use this console without putting these screws in, okay? And I'll tell you why. All the trouble that we went through to repair this particular console here, I don't know if somebody desoldered it or somebody just ripped it out. I'm not 100% sure. What I do know is that had those screws have been in there, it does add a substantial amount of stability to the cartridge port itself. It is an absolute necessity. So if you guys are doing your own, make sure you install those screws. If you don't, you will have problems down the road. Guaranteed. You will pull the cartridge connector out on it. You will damage it 100% of the time. Eventually, you may not damage it the first time. You may not damage it the fifth, but sooner or later, you're going to pull a cartridge out that's a little bit snugger than it should, and you're going to rip that guy right out of there, and that's just a bad day for everyone involved. So make sure you put those screws in. The front screws, by the way, are not 10 millimeter or M3 by 10s. I would say they're probably M3 by 6s, give or take. And I'm not going to test that for 100% right now, but if I had to guess, I'd say that's probably in the ballpark. Moving on, the bottom of this guy, or the top piece of this guy, and these can be, people call these shields all sorts of different things. Let's just be honest with what they are. They are electromagnetic shields to keep any noise, okay, any interference from your microwave or your radio or from the console leaving and going down range and interfering with your microwave or something else, right? That's what these are. Now, really what they are, it's just a Faraday cage, right? That's all they are. To keep interference to where you want it and to stop it from getting anywhere you don't. Whoopsie. And we're just going to bend these tabs over. A lot of times you can tell when somebody has had one of these apart before because the tabs will not be pressed down all the way. That is a surefire, guaranteed sign that someone has been into your console before, especially when it comes to a Jaguar or an Atari 2600 or 5200. They do like to, and I'm not going to do this, by the way. These front tabs, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see them, but they live down in these holes right here. And there's 3 on this side, and there's 3 on this side. Atari originally took and they twisted these over, and it locks that front edge down. I'm not going to do that on this one, and let me explain why. I don't want to weaken or soften the metal in any way. And while these right here are simple enough, those can break off, and they cannot easily be replaced. So let's set our top piece back up there. She drops right back down the way she's supposed to. And then we've got our 4 screws for the bottom of our console. Now, if you guys remember, we did, in this video, we did put these little rubber feet, additional rubber feet on it. It didn't need it. It doesn't have to have it. But I did it just because it will protect the console for a little bit longer, for several more years, and keep it from the plastics from rubbing up against whatever shelf that you're resting it on. I was going to take the original ones off, but I did not have the original ones to take off, so I could not do that. So we just put those right on top. And if you guys remember as well, one more thing that I always tell people is when you're running screws back in a hole, you're reinstalling screws, back them out first and then run them back in. And the reason for that is so that you make sure that the screw gets in the original hole that it was designed to go in. So, okay. That right there, guys, is going to wrap up Project Jaguar. I really appreciate you guys spending time with me and watching this video. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you guys learned, maybe, if you learned nothing else, maybe you learned about Quick's plastic polish, or if you learned nothing else, maybe you learned about the little bristle cleaners and all the different things, or maybe you've never seen a cartridge connector properly replaced on a Jaguar before and you learned all about that. you know, whatever it is, I hope that you took something great away from this. I know that I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed you guys spending some time with me. I love these consoles. As I said earlier in my video, I didn't get a chance to buy one of these as a kid, and I always really wanted one. And so now I have one. If I just had Cybermorph to go with it, which I don't, I have Checkered Flag. It's what I've got. So that's what we're gonna play. Since we don't have Cybermorph, we're gonna play Checkered Flag. It's what we've got. At any rate, guys, again, thanks for watching. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Make sure you come back and check out more videos like this. Again, I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.